Hey, welcome back to the channel. So it's been a while, been a while. Yeah, I wanted to make this video when the patch notes hits, like as usual, but I had some problem with my PC and only now I can finally fix my PC. So here we have patch 3.2.4 details, and with it we have three new legendary espers and not a single epic espers. Maybe they will come in the future, who knows, but we have three legendary espers that we gonna analyze in this video. I know this is what you guys been waiting for, and it's a bit late, but I'm gonna tell you guys all the tips and tricks for you guys to think about on these espers and how you're gonna proceed with that information. It's all up to you. Let's go. So first of all, we're gonna talk about Mateo, Prometheus. And Prometheus for a very long time has been my favorite god. Just because there was this game called Pantheon, the Legends, very old game. And in that game, there are normal gods and there are very rare gods. And one of them is Prometheus. And at that moment, getting Prometheus was a very big deal for me, because it was such a very rare god, and I was a free-to-play players from then on even until now. So ever since then, Prometheus has been my favorite god. And in here we're gonna see like how good this Prometheus is. But the thing is that the developer already found out about it and they kind of already nerfed him, but it's alright, we still have a lot of things that make Prometheus good. So Mateo, let's talk about his Resonance 6 first, the things that make the developer nerf him. So in Resonance 6, every Resonance 6 effect for every single Esper is gonna be game changing for every single Esper, like legendary Espers. So if there's a requirement for this Resonance 6 to trigger, that means that it's not gonna be that hard to achieve this, otherwise they will make this Resonance 6 pretty much useless. So the only other explanation is that it's gonna be very easy for Mateo to have 10 or more stacks of Eternal Flame. And if that is the case, that means that Mateo can get permanent standoff, because this Eternal Flame is undispellable, and I'm guessing that there is no duration for this buff. So the only way for you to reduce the number of Eternal Flame on Mateo is to deal critical damage to him. But if you are fighting against tanks or support espers, there is no way for them to deal critical damage to Mateo, especially if you bring Ethan in your lineup. And that's why, because I myself play Ethan, so I can reduce the chance of Mateo getting critical hit. Thus, I can keep Mateo to have 10 or more stacks of Eternal Flame and put him in a permanent standoff position. And that's the thing that makes him really strong in this Resonance 6. But that can only happen if he is at Resonance 6. So we're gonna take it down a little bit and we go to the Resonance 4. Resonance 4, when HP is below 60%, he will get lifesteal. So if you give Mateo Hades Rally, that means that he will be very hard to kill, because every time he gets reduced to below 60% HP, he will lifesteal his health back to full. And the thing that makes him really hard to kill other than the lifesteal is this one. The Eternal Flame, other than increase the attack percent of Mateo's attack, it also reduces damage taken. And reducing damage taken works differently than by just increasing your defense, because increasing your defense, you still have this formula, this calculation that take into consideration of the enemy's attack, your defense, and then blah calculate everything, and then you get the final damage. But the reducing damage taken means that that final damage itself will get reduced. So this will make Mateo really hard to kill as long as he has a very high stakes of Eternal Flame. So if you can maintain this thing and maintain a really high Eternal Flame stacks, that means that he is pretty much unkillable in this situation. But I also need some testing in this, like this is all just speculation, so you guys will be the one to prove this, whether this is gonna be the things that actually happen or this is just gonna be making him quite tanky but not necessarily be unkillable. So we're gonna go to his ability 1, ability 2, and ability 3 now. So first skill deals damage to one enemy 2 times based on attack. Okay, each hit has a chance of inflicting spark for 2 turns, and spark is this thing: when a carrier takes a critical hit, increase Mateo's AP and deals extra damage to the carrier based on Mateo's attack. This part here is just the same as Jin has third skill, so you don't need Mateo doesn't need to be the one dealing the critical hit. It can also be your friends, like your other Esper. So anytime the enemy which has the spark debuff get hit with critical hit from any source, Mateo will gain AP, and that will make him move much faster, making him deal more damage and making him, like, you know, pretty much nuisance in the whole in the battlefield. And it also deals extra damage based on Mateo's attack, but the thing is that this spark, the damage that comes from this extra damage, cannot miss, cannot land a critical hit, and it will not trigger an elemental wound. So if you want to build Mateo knowing this, that means that there are 2 possible builds for you. First is that you ignore this spark completely, like this is just a bonus extra damage, so you can still build your Mateo with critical rate and critical damage. Or you can just build Mateo full on attack without any critical rate and critical damage, because he will get his critical rate from his resonance too, and also you can build him with a very high speed. So high speed, high attack, because he get bonus damage. Each speed increased damage by a certain percentage of attack on his third and his second skill. So basically this guy is a legendary version of Sender, and we all know how strong Sender is. Like, that guy is borderline legendary because of the bonus speed that goes into his attack, and so he can move much faster than any other DPS Esper while still doing the same damage with the other legendary Espers. So this one also the legendary version of Sender, but looking at the in-game description, skill description, Mateo doesn't get the same amount of percentage value of speed compared to attack compared to Sender, but in the VR Battleground testing, he still deals more damage than Sender because of this Eternal Flame buff. So the Eternal Flame buff, as long as you can maintain this thing, this will be the bread and butter of Mateo. And so we're gonna go to the second ability, deals damage to one enemy 2 times based on attack, and inflict disease and defense down. So he can also inflict defense down, which is gonna help a lot in him dealing even more damage. And then after that, after Ascension, if the enemy already has spark before attacking, Mateo gains some stacks of Eternal Flame. This is another source for you to increase your stacks of Eternal Flame. And the third ability, Mateo gains some stacks of Eternal Flame. He will get 3 stacks of Eternal Flame from here, inflicts spark on one enemy for 2 turns, then deals damage to the enemy 3 times based on attack, it steals enemy buffs, and upon successfully stealing, grants Mateo some stacks of Eternal Flame. And the number of stacks of this Eternal Flame is 3 per buff. So if you manage to steal 3 enemy buffs, that means that you will get 9 stacks of Eternal Flame, plus the 3 stacks that you get initially. That means just by using your third skill, you can get 12 stacks of Eternal Flame. That's why this is insane. Like that's why it's very easy for Mateo to get 10 or more stacks of Eternal Flame, and the only thing you need to do is just to maintain this thing. So and also the last part is this one. This is the OP part of Mateo. Each time healing is received, Mateo gains 1 stack of Eternal Flame, and they also doesn't mention from where does this healing source come from. So if you can get a stack from regeneration, that means that every single turn Mateo will always get at the bare minimum 1 stack of Eternal Flame every time he moves. And also if you pair him with Ahmed, he will get insane amount of Eternal Flame stacks, because as you all know, Ahmed will easily multi-hit healing the Mateo in this case, and Mateo will just stay on like full health every time with very high stacks of Eternal Flame, which is 20 stacks maximum in this case. So that's the thing about Mateo, which is really great, really strong. His Resonance 2 effect makes him able to get critical rate plus 100% without him even investing in critical rate stats in his relic. So you can just build him. I myself personally will build him very high attack and very high speed. And also another thing about Mateo is that he has a speed lead captain. And his speed lead is only for PvE, but it increased his teammate speed by 35%. And that's the thing, like the only way for the enemy to reduce the Eternal Flame buff stacks from Mateo is to deal critical damage to him. But the thing is that in PvE situation, like most of the times, the enemy doesn't deal critical damage to you. So it's gonna be really hard for the enemy to reduce your stack. Thus, your Mateo will gonna have a very high stack of Eternal Flame. And with his Speed Captain buff, he can easily be a replacement for your Sender in every other PvE content, like the Dislyte Lens, the Ritual Miracle, in Calamity, in basically every single content that you usually bring Sender, you can now bring Mateo, which is the legendary version of this Sender. And as usual, as I always mention, when you have an Esper that do a similar role, you are not supposed to compare them, you are supposed to bring them together. So if you have both Mateo and Sender in the same team, you can just imagine how fast you can clear PvE content if you have Mateo now. So that's the thing about Mateo. And also for those of you who doesn't know yet, there are certain terms here that you need to know. First things first, what they mean about elemental boon is your elemental advantage damage. That means that if you are, for example, if you are a Wind Esper and you are hitting a Flow Esper, you will get bonus damage, and that is called elemental boon. So this thing will not trigger an elemental boon, so it will always gonna deal a fixed certain amount of white damage, because it also cannot land a critical hit. And another thing is that this Spark debuff is a silver debuff, so you don't need your Mateo to have any accuracy unless you want to inflict defense down to your target, because this Spark will always gonna land. So that's the thing. So for the second Esper, we're gonna talk about Yamato. And Yamato is a support with the ability to grant allies buffs and deal a fair amount of damage. But the thing is that his only way to support his allies is to just give attack up and defense up, and that's it. His other skill set doesn't help his friends at all. So having a Jack of all trades Esper is not always necessarily good, because that means that he cannot focus on any role that he can be good at. Like, he is all over the place, and this Rashomon buff only applicable to himself, and it has a limit of 10 stacks and give 10% critical rate per stack, so that means that he can easily get 100% critical rate. But the thing is that his attack and maximum HP that he get from his ability 1 and ability 2 have a very low number. So even if you build like critical damage on Yamato, he won't deal that much damage. Like you rather have him like a very tanky Esper with the ability to deal at least a little bit higher than any other support Esper. That's the thing about Yamato. And the only thing that is very interesting about him is this one consumes all stacks of Rashomon to deal extra true damage. I don't want to count the buff blocker here because it has a very low chance of applying. So the true damage here, even with maximum stacks of Rashomon, it can only cut the enemy's maximum HP by 15%. Like I know a certain Esper that can deal even higher than that, like Intisar. So he is like just like a really tanky Esper with the ability to cut the enemy's HP with true damage at least, and that's the only thing that is going on with Yamato. And after Ascension, this second ability also absorbs the target's AP and distributes it evenly across all allies upon a crit. So this works exactly the same as TS third skill. So in a sense, like he is like all over the place, like he is a jack of all trades, but he doesn't focus on any role that he is given. Like even if you build him a tanky Esper, he doesn't necessarily be like, you know, have any skill that help him survive, and his way of supporting his allies is only through attack up and defense up buff, and his damage also is not as high as I expected. So let's go to the resonance here. Resonance 2, Thunder Surge AP absorption can be resisted. This is good because that means that you don't need accuracy on Yamato because you don't really count the buff blocker again. So you don't really need accuracy for Yamato in order for him to trigger this AP absorption. So that's kind of like a good bonus using the Resonance 2 here. So Resonance 4, upon a crit 20% chance of dispelling one buff from the target. This at least make him like better, like make him more useful, because now his second ability can dispel one buff from every single enemies. So this one also hit 3 times, and that means that he will work similar to Tricky, but the thing is that minus the miss rate. So on the Resonance 6 here, Whistle Crossing gains an extra turn. This is huge because now he can apply attack up and defense up, get a full stack of Rashomon, and then after that he can follow up with his second skill. So that's the thing about Yamato. Like he is kind of like, I'm not really into Yamato because he is not not my go-to Esper, like looking at his skill set. So let's go to Swanpin next. So Swanpin is OP. I'm gonna tell you that first. Swanpin is OP. Like she is a different kind of OP compared to Nua. The reason why Nua is so OP is because of how straightforward her kit is, because everybody can just straight up see how valuable she is, and the way to use her is to just use third skill, second skill, first skill, third skill, second skill, and it's brainless. Like you don't need to think about anything at all when using Nua. Like you can just bring her in every single lineup and she will do her things by herself. But it's different with Swanpin, because Swanpin is a grandmaster. Like she is the grandmaster of chess, and so you need to think about your moves when you are using Swanpin, and it's reflected here using her buffs. This is insane. All of her buffs are stackable. You can stack them all. Like this is insane. Like imagine if you can have like your DPS, because here's the thing. Let's go through this one by one. So ability 1 deals damage to one enemy based on attack, increases AP for allies with horse and chariot. So for those allies that have a chariot and horse buff, they will get increased AP. And then we're gonna skip the second ability because this is what makes her OP, and we're gonna go straight to the third ability. So we're gonna go to her passive first. At the start of combat, Swanpin gains General and grants one stack of Soldier to all teammates, excluding Swanpin. After Ascension, grants all allies attack up for 2 turns. This is insane, because this means that in the beginning of the turn, every one of your allies already got attack up. So you don't necessarily need Dahlia or any other like attack buffer to move before all of your other Esper to give attack up first before your other Esper move. Because if you bring Swanpin before the fight even starts, everybody will already have their attack up buff. This is insane. And so this general buff is gonna be permanently on Swanpin, and all of your other teammates will all have soldier, one stack of soldier at the beginning of the combat. So you need to memorize all of these buffs first, like the name of the buffs, and I'm gonna go through all of them like one by one. So general, this is only applicable for Swanpin. Every time Swanpin attacks, calls in one random teammate with soldier, and you need to take notice about this. This general buff is permanently on Swanpin. That means that every time Swanpin moves, she will calls in one random teammate. This is insane. Like, you can just give a very high speed on Swanpin's rally, and she will keep on calling her teammates every time she moves. And if you pair her with teammates that have a lot of advantage using their first skill, like for example like Tang Xuan or probably Gaius when you're already at God mode, and then I can already think like a lot of Espers that have like a very good first skill. If you pair them with Swanpin, she will call them every time she moves. That is it. And then after that, it grants them one stack of soldier. So the soldier buff itself, like I'm gonna talk about this later, and this sentence here is just a standard sentence, like once Swanpin dies, like she will bring all of her buffs to her grave. So the soldier buff only increase attack per stack, so this is just a nice bonus to have. And when this effect is at full stacks, which is 5 stacks, it converts the buff into chariot for 2 turns. So cannot gain soldier while having general or chariot, stackable with limit. So chariot is another buff which increase attack and speed. So this is just like an upgraded version of soldier, and gains one stack of soldier when this effect expires. So you can just think about soldier and chariot like a really good bonus buff for all of your allies whenever you bring Swanpin into your lineup. So every one of your Esper will get increased attack permanently, and it will transform into an even higher attack and a bonus speed whenever they already reach like 5 stacks of soldier for 2 turns. So that's the thing about soldier and chariot. So this is just like a really nice bonus. But the thing is that the next sentence that goes on her third skill here. So if she uses her third ability, it will grant one stack of soldier to all allies. So you want to make this soldier to reach like 5 stacks. And it also grants horse to 2 allies with the highest attack for 2 turns. And the crazy part about this is that this soldier and horse buff can stack. So the same Esper can have a soldier buff and also a horse buff. And if this soldier buff changes into chariot, that means the same Esper can have both horse buff and chariot buff. So this horse buff itself, it amplifies damage dealt. The higher the target's maximum HP, the more damage is amplified. So you already know that this buff is a tank killer. And then this effect does not work when the target is at an elemental advantage. This sentence needs to be clarified. Like, from my perspective, this means that this effect, the horse, like all these effects, will not apply when your target is at an elemental advantage against you. That's what I understand from this sentence. That means that if you are a flow esper and then your enemy is a wind esper, that means that this effect won't work. So you need to be at least with the same element against your target, or you yourself is at an elemental advantage against your target. So that's what I understand from this sentence. Or it can also mean the opposite. Like with this sentence, like this effect does not work when your target is at your elemental advantage. It can also mean that thing. Like if you are a wind esper and you are hitting a flow esper, that means that you are at an elemental advantage against your target. That means that this effect won't work. In any case, like there is a certain way that this effect will not work. And as I always say, like if a certain ability have requirements for it to trigger, that means that that ability is gonna be really strong. And that is actually true, because I have here a sneak peek of the in-game description from the PTR server from my friend, and it says here that the damage amplification can go up to 100%, and that is insane, because damage amplification means that it will increase the final damage of your attack. So this 100% means a lot, but the way for you to reach this 100% is not clear, like how much maximum HP it requires for your target for you to be able to reach this 100%. This is the similar problem with Chang-Chi skill description. But we already know how strong Chang-Chi damage is, so this one will most likely gonna deal similar insane amount of damage like Chang-Chi's third skill. And all of that only goes to this part. Oh my god. So the next part is that it deals damage to all enemies based on attack and deals extra true damage based on the enemy's maximum HP. It doesn't exceed a certain percentage of Swan Pin's attack. That means that you want to have a very high attack so that you can deal as much maximum HP damage as possible. And from the in-game description, the true damage is 10% of the enemy's maximum HP up to 100% of Swan Pin's attack. So this is very similar to Ashley's rainbow buff. So this is, you already know like how much damage does Ashley's rainbow buff deal, so you can already guess how much damage this thing's gonna deal. And also it inflicts miss rate out for 2 turns, and we all know miss rate out is like the best debuff to make the enemy unable to do anything to your lineup. And thus that concludes the third ability of Swan Pin, and that is only the third skill. Now, after Swan Pin uses her third skill, the next turn she moves, she will use her second skill. And oh boy, this is the most insane part of her skill set. So you already know that the horse buff and the soldier buff can stack. So once your Swan Pin uses her second ability, it selects one ally, grants them cannon for 1 turn, increase their AP, and this AP increase is 100% AP if you give a Swan Pin Billimon. So this will basically like call your allies straight away, and it deals damage to all enemies based on attack and inflicts defense down for 2 turns and dispels their shield. Oh my god. So here's the thing. Basically what this sentence says here is that she will deal damage to all of her enemies inflicts defense down, makes them more vulnerable, and remove their shield. Basically, your enemies will be naked, like all of them. And now you have two allies with the highest attack, having both soldier and horse buff. And then one of them will also have a cannon, and this cannon deals damage, ignores a certain percentage of defense. Wow. And then it gains stun when this effect expires. This is basically works exactly like Steward's third skill, which makes him sleep after he attacks. So after you deal this damage, your Esper that has this cannon buff will go into stun state. So here's the thing: one of your Esper will have a soldier buff which increase attack, and then a horse buff which amplifies damage dealt based on the target's maximum HP, and then also ignores defense. One Esper with these three buffs. Once your Swanpin use her third ability and second ability. And imagine if you give this thing to Narmer or Gaius, because it doesn't mention here that the damage must be like single target or AoE. So this only tells you that the next attack will ignore defense and also amplifies damage dealt, the next attack that they will make. So if their next attack is AoE, that means that this thing will be applicable to their AoE attack, like all this bonus. So basically, whoever is paired up with your Swanpin will be able to one-shot the entire enemy team, because Swanpin herself already inflicts defense down and also remove their shield. How OP is that, guys? Wow, this is like, when you think about it, like, this is like a real OP Esper. Wow. So we're gonna go to the resonance here. Resonance 2, change heavy cannonade. The carrier of cannon no longer gains stun when the effect expires. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, like, this stun can also be nullified. Like if you give immunity to your Esper that you give a cannon buff to, that means that you can nullify this stun effect, because it will stun your Esper which has immunity, so it won't take effect. So this thing is good, but it can be nullified by some other method, so it's alright. And her fourth resonance, if there's an ability on cooldown, speed plus 20, okay. So here's the thing, like, this Swanpin have a very high base speed, and her ascension also gives her 10 speed. So imagine if she also given another 20 speed. Yeah, I don't want to imagine that. Okay, so now next goes to the Resonance 6, which is the game changer. So this changed the checkmate, which is her third skill here. A new effect is added to General, grants one stack of soldier to all teammates excluding Swanpin at the end of Swanpin's turn. So every time she moves, at the end of her turn, she will give a soldier buff stack to all of her allies, which will make her allies goes into chariot mode much often. So it will increase their attack and also speed, which will make them move even faster. So in a sense, like, if you think about Nuwa, like, Nuwa can give AP up to her allies and then to herself, like, she can basically keep on moving. Like, Swanpin will bring all of her allies together with this chariot buff. They will move fast by themselves. So this resonance is not really insanely game changing for her, but this is already like helps a lot. But the best part about Swanpin is on her abilities to give all of these buffs. And if you play your cards right, you can build an insane kind of team with Swampin in your hand. But then again, she is a 5-star simmer, so we don't expect much to get her. But the thing is that at this point in time, I think everybody is close to that simmer ticket pity. So I do hope you guys good luck on getting Swampin with your simmer record pity, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and bye bye.